Maybe you should just marry me and save me from this mess. A careless joke, an exhausted attempt at humor in the middle of the night. But when Lily Carter didn't laugh, when her eyes filled with tears and her voice trembled with 3 years of hidden truth, Daniel Hayes realized he had just shattered the only thing holding his life together. 3 years of working side by side, 3 years of being blind, and now the truth stood in front of him, waiting for an answer he had never let himself consider. Follow this story to the end. Hit like and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Daniel Hayes stood in the elevator on a Monday morning, clutching a coffee that had gone cold 20 minutes ago and a folder with documents he'd printed but hadn't read. His first day at Meridian Solutions. 32 years old, recently promoted to senior analyst, and completely out of his depth. The elevator dinged. 7th floor. He stepped out into a maze of glass-walled conference rooms and open-plan desks that looked like they belonged in a tech startup, not an insurance analytics firm. Everything was white, in chrome, and aggressively modern. He hated it immediately. Lost? Daniel turned. A woman about his age stood near the elevator bank, holding a stack of binders that looked ready to topple. She had dark hair pulled into a messy bun, glasses sliding down her nose, and an expression that suggested she found something about this moment deeply amusing. That obvious? Daniel asked. You've got the look, she said. New hire panic mixed with regret. It's a very specific face. I wasn't panicking. You were gripping that folder like it owed you money. Daniel glanced down. His knuckles were white. He loosened his grip and tried for a smile that probably looked more like a grimace. Daniel Hayes, I'm supposed to report to someone. I wrote it down and then left the paper in my car. Lily Carter, she said, shifting the binders to offer a hand. And you're reporting to Marcus Chen. 3rd row, corner office with the plants. Fair warning, he collects succulents and we'll talk about them if you make eye contact for too long. They shook hands. Hers was warm, confident. His was still cold from the coffee cup. Thanks, Daniel said. I'll avoid eye contact. Smart. She tilted her head, studying him. You really do look stressed. First day jitters or something bigger? Daniel hesitated. He wasn't used to strangers asking real questions. Just a lot on my plate. Kids? He blinked. How did you... You've got Cheerios stuck to your sleeve, Lily said, pointing, and there's what looks like purple marker on your collar. Either you have kids or you had a really interesting weekend. Daniel looked down at his sleeve and felt his face heat. He'd been in such a rush that morning. Emma's breakfast had been a disaster. She'd refused to wear anything but her princess dress, and he'd barely managed to drop her at daycare before speeding across town to make it here on time. Daughter, he said. She's 4, and she's enthusiastic. That's a diplomatic word for it, Lily said with a grin. I like you already. Come on, I'll walk you to Marcus before you wander into a conference room and accidentally join someone else's team. She turned and started walking without waiting for his response. Daniel followed, weaving through desks where people were already deep into phone calls and spreadsheets. Nobody looked up. Nobody seemed to notice the new guy trailing behind Lily Carter like a lost puppy. So what brought you to Meridian? Lily asked over her shoulder. Better pay, Daniel said honestly. My last company was downsizing. This was the best offer I got. Not exactly a ringing endorsement. I'm trying to be optimistic about it. How's that going? Ask me in a week. Lily laughed, a genuine sound that made a few people glance up from their desks. She didn't seem to notice or care. They reached the corner office, and she knocked twice before pushing the door open. Marcus Chen looked up from his computer. He was younger than Daniel expected, maybe late 30s, with glasses and a desk covered in small potted plants. Marcus, this is Daniel Hayes, Lily said. Your new analyst. Found him wandering the halls looking tragic. I wasn't, Daniel started. He definitely was, Lily interrupted. Anyway, I'll leave you two to bond over spreadsheets and risk assessments. Daniel, if you need a translator for any of Marcus's emails, find me. He writes like he's drafting legal documents. She left before either of them could respond. Marcus stared after her, shook his head, then stood and extended a hand. Welcome to the team, he said. Ignore Lily. She thinks she's funny. She kind of is, Daniel said. Marcus smiled. Yeah, she is. Come on, let me show you your desk and introduce you to the rest of the crew. The morning blurred into a series of introductions, passwords, and system walkthroughs that Daniel barely absorbed. His desk was sandwiched between two other analysts who seemed friendly but busy, and by lunch he'd already forgotten half their names. He ate a sandwich at his desk while reviewing files Marcus had sent over, trying to look competent. Around 2 in the afternoon, Lily appeared at his desk with 2 cups of coffee. You look like you need this, she said, setting one down in front of him. Daniel glanced up. You didn't have to. I know, but you've been staring at that same spreadsheet for 20 minutes, and I'm pretty sure you haven't blinked. Coffee helps. He took the cup. It was still hot, made exactly the way he liked it. Black, no sugar. How did you know? Lucky guess, she said. Also, I saw you at the coffee station this morning. You made a face when someone offered you creamer. Daniel took a sip. It was good. Better than the gas station sludge he usually drank. Thanks. No problem. Lily leaned against the edge of his desk, completely at ease. So, how's the first day treating you? Marcus give you the full orientation, or did he skip to the part where he shows you pictures of his succulents? He mentioned them, Daniel admitted. Briefly. Give it time. By next week you'll know more about plant care than you ever wanted to. Can't wait. Lily smiled, but there was something softer in it now. Seriously though, if you need help with anything, just ask. I know this place can be overwhelming at first. Lots of systems, lots of people, lots of unwritten rules nobody tells you about. Like what? Like never schedule a meeting after 4 on a Friday. Janet in accounting will send you passive-aggressive emails for a month. And don't heat fish in the microwave unless you want to become an office pariah. Noted, Daniel said. Any other survival tips? Bring your own lunch. The cafeteria food is criminally bad. And if you're ever stuck on something, I'm usually at my desk. 2nd row near the window. Why are you being so nice to me? Daniel asked, and immediately regretted it. The question came out more suspicious than he'd intended. Lily didn't seem offended. She just shrugged. Because I remember my first day here. I spent an hour trying to log into a system that had been decommissioned 6 months earlier because nobody told me. I would have killed for someone to just help. Well, Daniel said. Thanks, I appreciate it. Any time. She pushed off his desk and started to walk away, then paused and turned back. Hey, random question, do you like Thai food? Daniel blinked. Yeah, why? A few of us grab dinner from this place down the street on Thursdays. Nothing fancy, just take out in the break room. You should come this week. Good way to meet people outside of the chaos. I'll think about it, Daniel said, though he already knew the answer would be no. Thursday nights, he picked Emma up early from daycare, and they had what she called pizza and movie night, which really meant frozen pizza and whatever animated film she'd decided to obsess over that week. Lily seemed to read something in his expression. Kid stuff? Yeah. Fair enough. Offer stands if you change your mind. She walked away and Daniel watched her go, something uncomfortable settling in his chest. It had been a long time since someone had casually invited him to something. A long time since he'd felt like he could say yes. He turned back to his spreadsheet and tried to focus. The rest of the week passed in a haze of learning curves and minor panic attacks. Daniel stayed late most nights, trying to catch up on projects Marcus kept assigning him, and every morning he showed up exhausted and running on caffeine. Emma had started complaining that he was always tired, and he didn't have the heart to tell her it was only going to get worse. On Thursday, Lily stopped by his desk again. Last chance for Thai food, she said. We're ordering in about an hour. Daniel hesitated. He'd already texted the daycare to let them know he'd be late, and Emma was having a playdate at her friend's house anyway. For once, his schedule was clear. Yeah, he said. Okay, I'll come. Lily's face lit up. Yeah? Great. Meet us in the break room at 6. 6 o'clock came faster than he expected. Daniel finished up the report he'd been working on, saved it 3 times to be safe, and made his way to the break room. Lily was already there with 3 other people, 2 guys from the analytics team and a woman from HR whose name he'd forgotten. Daniel! Lily waved him over. You made it! Grab a plate, we got way too much food. The table was covered in takeout containers: pad thai, green curry, spring rolls, fried rice. It smelled incredible. Daniel hadn't realized how hungry he was until that moment. He filled a plate and sat down next to Lily. The conversation flowed easily. Work gossip, weekend plans, a heated debate about whether the office coffee was getting worse or if they were all just getting older. Daniel didn't say much, but he listened, and for the first time all week, he felt like he could breathe. "So, Daniel," one of the guys, Tom, maybe, said, "Lily mentioned you've got a kid. How old?" "4," Daniel said. "Her name's Emma." "That's a fun age," the HR woman said. "My son just turned 5. It's all superhero costumes and made-up rules at our house." "Princess dresses and glitter at mine," Daniel said. "So much glitter," Lily laughed. "Does it ever come out?" "No," Daniel said flatly. "I've accepted that I'll just be covered in glitter for the next decade." "That's the spirit," Lily said, grinning. She leaned back in her chair, completely relaxed, and Daniel found himself relaxing too. This was nice. Normal. He'd forgotten what normal felt like. After dinner, people started drifting back to their desks or heading home. Daniel helped Lily pack up the leftover containers. "Thanks for inviting me," he said. "I needed that." "Any time," Lily said. She handed him a container of spring rolls. "Take these. You look like you could use a midnight snack." "I'm not going to be here at midnight." Famous last words. Daniel smiled despite himself. "Seriously though, thanks." "Stop thanking me," Lily said, but she was smiling too. "We're coworkers. This is what coworkers do." Except it didn't feel like just coworkers. It felt like the beginning of something Daniel couldn't name yet, something that made the weight on his shoulders feel just a little bit lighter. Over the next few months, Lily became a fixture in Daniel's life. It happened so gradually he didn't notice at first. She'd swing by his desk with coffee, or stay late to help him prep for a presentation, or send him funny emails when the workday dragged. She never pushed, never demanded his time, but she was always there when he needed her, and Daniel needed her more than he wanted to admit. One night, about 4 months into the job, Daniel was stuck at the office past 9, trying to finish a report that was due the next morning. Emma was at his mom's house for the night, which meant he didn't have to rush home, but it also meant he was alone with his thoughts and a spreadsheet that refused to make sense. Lily appeared at his desk with 2 coffees and a bag of vending machine cookies. "You're still here," she said. "So are you," Daniel pointed out. "Yeah, but I'm a workaholic. What's your excuse?" "This report is going to kill me." Lily set the coffee down and leaned over his shoulder to look at the screen. She smelled like lavender and something faintly sweet, and Daniel tried very hard not to notice. "Oh," she said after a moment, "you're using the wrong formula. Here, move over." Daniel slid his chair to the side, and Lily took over the keyboard. Her fingers flew across the keys, adjusting formulas and restructuring data with the kind of ease that made Daniel feel like an idiot for not seeing it himself. "There," she said after a few minutes. "That should fix it. Run the analysis again, and it'll balance out." Daniel stared at the screen. She was right. Of course she was right. "How did you—" "I've been doing this for 5 years, Lily said. "You pick up a few tricks. Don't beat yourself up." "I wasn't—" "You were." She handed him the coffee. "Drink this and stop spiraling. You're doing fine." Daniel took a sip. It was still hot, made exactly how he liked it. "You didn't have to stay." "I know," Lily said. She sat on the edge of his desk, completely unbothered by the late hour or the fact that they were the only 2 people left in the office. "But you looked stressed, and I figured you could use the company." "I could," Daniel admitted. "Thanks." "Stop thanking me." "I mean it." Lily looked at him for a long moment, something unreadable in her expression. Then she smiled and hopped off the desk. "Finish your report. I'll be at my desk if you need me." She walked away before he could respond, leaving Daniel alone with his coffee and a strange ache in his chest that he didn't know how to name. That became their routine. Late nights turned into shared dinners in the break room. Shared dinners turned into weekend texts about random things. A funny meme, a question about work, a picture of Emma covered in paint after an art project gone wrong. Lily never overstepped, never pushed for more than Daniel could give, but she was always there. Steady, reliable, safe. And somewhere along the way, Daniel stopped thinking of her as just a coworker. It was small things at first. The way he looked for her when he walked into the office. The way his mood lifted when she stopped by his desk. The way he caught himself telling her things he didn't tell anyone else, about Emma, about his ex-wife, about the constant fear that he was failing at everything. Lily never judged. She just listened, made a joke to lighten the mood, and reminded him that he was doing better than he thought. "You're a good dad," she told him one Thursday night over Thai food. It had become their thing now, Thursday dinners, just the two of them, because everyone else had stopped showing up. "I'm barely keeping it together," Daniel said. "That's what being a parent is," Lily said. "Nobody has it together. They just pretend better." "You don't have kids. How would you know?" "I have 3 younger siblings," Lily said. "Trust me, I know chaos." Daniel smiled despite himself. "Fair point." "Emma's lucky to have you," Lily said, her tone more serious now. "You show up for her. Every day. That matters." Daniel didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded and changed the subject. But her words stayed with him long after they'd finished eating. A small, warm thing that settled in his chest and refused to leave. Months turned into a year turned into 2. And Daniel kept telling himself that what he felt for Lily was just friendship, just gratitude, just the relief of having someone who understood. He didn't let himself think about the way his heart jumped when she laughed. He didn't let himself think about the jealousy that flared when she mentioned going on a date. He didn't let himself think about the fact that she'd become the first person he wanted to tell when something good happened, and the only person who could make him feel better when everything fell apart. Because if he thought about it, if he let himself actually feel it, then he'd have to do something about it. And Daniel couldn't afford to lose her. So he buried it, locked it away, pretended it didn't exist, until one night, 3 years after they'd met, when exhaustion and desperation made him careless. It was late, almost midnight. They were in the conference room, prepping for a presentation that could make or break Daniel's chance at a promotion. The numbers weren't adding up, the slides were a mess, and Daniel's brain felt like it was leaking out of his ears. Lily had stayed late to help, again. She'd been doing that more and more lately, and Daniel knew he should tell her to go home, that she didn't owe him this, but the selfish part of him couldn't let her leave. "This is a disaster," Daniel muttered, staring at the screen. "I'm going to walk in there tomorrow and they're going to tear me apart." "You're not," Lily said. She was sitting next to him, so close their shoulders almost touched. "We're going to fix this. Just breathe." "I don't have time to breathe." "Oh, Daniel, I should have stayed at my old job," he said, the words spilling out before he could stop them. "I should have just taken the pay cut and stayed somewhere I actually understood what I was doing. This was a mistake. All of it." "Stop," Lily said firmly. She turned in her chair to face him, her expression somewhere between exasperated and concerned. "You're spiraling. You do this every time you're stressed and it never helps." "I'm not spiraling. I'm being realistic." "You're catastrophizing," Lily corrected, "and you need to knock it off before you give yourself a panic attack." Daniel laughed, but it came out bitter. "What would I do without you?" "Probably crash and burn," Lily said, trying for a joke, but her voice was softer now. "Careful." "Yeah," Daniel said. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaustion making him reckless. "Maybe you should just marry me and save me from this mess." The words hung in the air. Daniel froze. He'd meant it as a joke, the kind of stupid thing you say when you're too tired to think straight, but the moment it left his mouth, he knew it was a mistake. Lily went very still. She was staring at him, her expression unreadable, and Daniel's brain finally caught up to his mouth. "I didn't," he started. "That came out wrong. I just meant—" "Daniel." Lily's voice was quiet, too quiet. "Don't." "Don't what?" "Don't do that." She stood up, and Daniel saw her hands were shaking. "Don't make jokes like that." "Lily, I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking." "No," she said, and there was something raw in her voice now, something that made Daniel's chest tighten. "You weren't. But I have been. For 3 years, Daniel. I've been thinking about it every single day." Daniel stared at her. His brain had stopped working entirely. "What?" he managed. Lily laughed, but it wasn't her usual laugh. It was sharp and painful and full of something that sounded like heartbreak. "You really don't know, do you?" "Know what?" She turned away from him, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold something in. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm in love with you." The world tilted. Daniel opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He just sat there, frozen, while Lily kept talking. "I've been in love with you since that first week," she said. "Since you showed up looking lost and stressed and like you were holding the weight of the world on your shoulders. And I told myself it was just a crush, that it would go away, but it didn't. It just got worse." "Lily, let me finish," she said, and there were tears in her voice now. "I've watched you be a father. I've watched you work yourself to the bone trying to give Emma a good life. I've watched you be kind and funny and human even when you're falling apart. And every time you thanked me for helping you, every time you smiled at me like I'd done something incredible just by showing up, it made me fall harder." She finally turned to face him, and Daniel saw tears streaming down her face. "So don't make jokes about marrying me," Lily said, "because I can't. I can't keep pretending that it doesn't hurt. I can't keep pretending that I'm okay with just being your friend when I want so much more than that." Daniel felt like he'd been hit by a truck. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears, and his hands were shaking, and every single thing he'd spent 3 years ignoring came crashing down on him all at once. He stood up, took a step toward her. "Lily," he said, and his voice cracked on her name. She shook her head, backing away. "I shouldn't have said anything. I'm sorry. I couldn't keep it in anymore." "Don't apologize," Daniel said. "Don't—" But she was already grabbing her bag, already heading for the door. "Lily, wait. I need to go," she said. And then she was gone, the door swinging shut behind her with a soft click that sounded like the end of everything. Daniel stood alone in the conference room, surrounded by spreadsheets and slides and the wreckage of his own stupidity, and realized with perfect, devastating clarity that he'd just lost the most important person in his life. Because she was right, about all of it, and he'd been too afraid to see it until it was too late. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He sat in his car in the parking garage for over an hour, staring at his phone, drafting and deleting text messages that all sounded wrong. By the time he finally drove home, it was past 2 in the morning, and his head felt like it was full of static. Emma was at his mom's place until Saturday. The apartment was dark and silent when he walked in, and Daniel stood in the doorway for a long moment, not bothering to turn on the lights. The emptiness felt appropriate somehow. Fitting. He'd screwed up, badly, and he had no idea how to fix it. Morning came too quickly. Daniel dragged himself out of bed after maybe 3 hours of sleep, showered, put on a suit that felt too tight, and drove to the office on autopilot. The presentation was at 10. He had 4 hours to pull himself together and pretend like his entire world hadn't imploded the night before. Lily's desk was empty when he arrived. Her computer was off, her chair pushed in, no coffee cup or scattered papers. She was always early, always there before him. Daniel's stomach dropped. He walked to his own desk and sat down, staring blankly at his screen. The presentation slides were still open from last night, half-finished and full of errors he didn't have the energy to fix. He should have been panicking, should have been scrambling to salvage the disaster, but all he could think about was the look on Lily's face when she'd said, "I'm in love with you," and the way her voice had cracked like something breaking. "Hayes." Daniel jerked his head up. Marcus was standing next to his desk, holding a coffee and looking mildly concerned. "You look like hell," Marcus said. "Thanks," Daniel muttered. "Presentation ready?" "Working on it." Marcus studied him for a moment, then sighed. "Look, I know you've been putting in long hours on this. If you need help—" "I'm fine," Daniel said, cutting him off. "I'll have it done." Marcus didn't look convinced, but he nodded and walked away. Daniel turned back to his screen and tried to focus. He made it about 10 minutes before his phone buzzed. It was a text from Lily. "I'm not coming in today. Used a sick day. I'm sorry about last night. Let's just forget it happened." Daniel read the message 3 times. Each time it felt worse. Let's just forget it happened. As if that was possible. As if he could just erase the last 12 hours and go back to pretending everything was fine. He typed a response. Deleted it, typed another one. Deleted that too. Finally, he gave up and shoved his phone in his drawer. The presentation was a disaster. Daniel stumbled through the slides, lost his train of thought twice, and forgot to explain half the data points that actually mattered. The executives asked questions he should have anticipated, and his answers came out scattered and defensive. By the time it was over, he felt like he'd been put through a shredder. Marcus caught him on the way out of the conference room. "That was rough," Marcus said, not unkindly. "You want to tell me what's going on?" "Nothing," Daniel said. "Just didn't sleep well." "This about Lily?" Daniel's head snapped up. "What?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "She used a sick day for the first time in 2 years, on the same morning you look like you got hit by a truck." "I'm not an idiot, Hayes." Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no idea what to say. "Whatever happened," Marcus said, "fix it. You two work well together. I don't want to lose that." He walked away before Daniel could respond, leaving him standing in the hallway feeling like the world's biggest failure. The rest of the day crawled by. Daniel tried to work, but he couldn't focus. Every time someone walked past his desk, he looked up, half expecting to see Lily. But she didn't come. Her desk stayed empty, and the silence where her laugh usually lived felt louder than anything else in the office. By 5 o'clock, Daniel gave up. He packed his things, drove to his mom's house, and picked up Emma early. "Daddy!" She launched herself at him the moment he walked through the door, wrapping her arms around his legs with the kind of unbridled enthusiasm only a 4-year-old could manage. "You're here!" "Hey, Bug," Daniel said, scooping her up. She smelled like crayons and strawberry shampoo, and he held her a little tighter than usual. "Did you have fun with Grandma?" "We made cookies," Emma announced proudly. "I put sprinkles on all of them, even the ones Grandma said didn't need sprinkles." "Of course you did." Daniel's mom appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She took one look at him and frowned. "You look terrible," she said. "So I've been told," Daniel muttered. "Everything okay?" "Fine." She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. That was one thing Daniel appreciated about his mom. She knew when to let things go. She kissed Emma on the forehead, handed Daniel a container of cookies, and sent them on their way. Emma chattered the entire drive home, telling him about the cookies and the movie they'd watched, and how Grandma's cat had knocked over a plant and made a huge mess. Daniel made the appropriate noises, but his mind was elsewhere. "I'm in love with you. I can't keep pretending that I'm okay with just being your friend when I want so much more than that." He kept hearing Lily's voice, kept seeing the tears on her face, and it made something in his chest twist painfully. "Daddy?" Daniel blinked. Emma was staring at him from her car seat, her brow furrowed in concern. "Yeah, Bug? Are you sad?" The question caught him off guard. "What? No, I'm fine." "You look sad," Emma insisted, "like when you watched that movie with the dog." Daniel almost laughed despite everything. "I'm not sad like the dog movie." "Then why do you look sad?" He didn't have an answer for that. At least not one a 4-year-old would understand. "Just thinking about work stuff," he said finally. "Nothing for you to worry about." Emma seemed to accept this. She went back to singing a song she'd made up about dinosaurs and pizza, and Daniel focused on the road, trying very hard not to think about Lily. He failed spectacularly. That night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel sat on the couch with a beer he wasn't drinking and stared at his phone. Lily still hadn't responded to the message he'd finally worked up the courage to send. "Can we talk?" 3 words. Simple. Direct. And apparently not worth answering. He set the phone down and scrubbed his hands over his face. This was his fault. All of it. He'd made that stupid joke, and when Lily had laid her heart out in front of him, he'd frozen like a coward instead of saying what he should have said. Except he didn't know what he should have said. Because the truth was messy and complicated and terrifying, and Daniel had spent 3 years very carefully not looking at it. But now he didn't have a choice. He thought about the first time he'd met Lily, how she'd teased him about looking lost, how she'd made him laugh when he'd been convinced he was going to hate this job. He thought about all the late nights she'd stayed to help him, all the times she'd shown up with coffee and terrible vending machine snacks, just because she knew he needed them. He thought about the way Emma's face lit up whenever Lily came over, how she'd started asking when Miss Lily was coming to visit again. He thought about the jealousy that had eaten at him every time Lily mentioned going on a date, the way he'd invented excuses to text her on weekends, the way he looked for her the moment he walked into the office every morning. And he realized, with a clarity that felt like getting punched in the chest, that Marcus had been right. This wasn't just about Lily being a good coworker or a reliable friend. He was in love with her, had been for a long time. and he'd been too much of an idiot to see it. Daniel grabbed his phone and called her. It went straight to voicemail. He tried again, same result. On the third attempt, he gave up and sent another text. "I need to see you, please." No response. He threw the phone onto the couch and stood up, pacing the length of the living room like a caged animal. This was unbearable. He couldn't just sit here and wait for her to decide whether or not she'd ever speak to him again. But what else could he do? Show up at her apartment uninvited? That felt like a terrible idea. Send her flowers? That felt worse. Grand gestures only worked in movies, and this wasn't a movie. This was real life, where he'd hurt someone who mattered and had no idea how to make it right. Daniel didn't sleep that night either, or the next one. By Monday morning, he looked like something that had crawled out of a grave, and he felt even worse. Lily's desk was still empty when he arrived. Marcus stopped by around 9. "She took the whole week off," he said without preamble. "Personal days?" Daniel's chest tightened. "Did she say why?" "No, and I didn't ask." Marcus gave him a pointed look. "Whatever you did, fix it fast. We've got 3 major projects coming up, and I need both of you functional." "I'm trying," Daniel said, and it came out more desperate than he'd intended. Marcus softened slightly. "Look, I don't know what happened between you two, and frankly, it's none of my business. But Lily's one of the best people on this team, and you're not far behind. Don't screw this up." He left before Daniel could respond. The week dragged on like a prison sentence. Daniel went through the motions, picked up Emma, made dinner, helped with bedtime, collapsed into bed, and stared at the ceiling until exhaustion finally dragged him under. He texted Lily twice more, called once, and got nothing in return. By Thursday, he was starting to think she was never going to speak to him again. And then, on Friday afternoon, his phone buzzed. "Can you meet me tonight?" "After Emma's asleep." Daniel's heart jumped into his throat. He typed back immediately. "Yes." "Where?" "That coffee shop near your place." 8:30? "I'll be there." He spent the rest of the day in a state of barely controlled panic. He left work early, picked up Emma, made her favorite dinner, and rushed through bedtime stories with an urgency that made her ask if he needed to use the bathroom. "No bug," Daniel said, tucking her in. "I just have to go out for a little bit after you fall asleep. Grandma's going to come stay with you." "Where are you going?" "To talk to a friend." "Miss Lily?" Daniel froze. "Why would you think that?" Emma shrugged. "You always smile when you talk about Miss Lily, but you haven't smiled all week." The kid was too perceptive for her own good. "Yeah," Daniel admitted. "Miss Lily. Are you going to make her smile again?" "I'm going to try." Emma seemed satisfied with that. She snuggled into her pillow, already half asleep, and Daniel kissed her forehead before slipping out of the room. His mom arrived 20 minutes later. She took one look at him and raised an eyebrow. "You changed your shirt 3 times, she said. "How do you—" "There are 2 shirts on your bed and one in the hamper. What's going on?" Daniel sighed. "I'm meeting someone." "Lily?" He should have known better than to try hiding anything from his mother. "Yeah." "About time," she said, settling onto the couch. "Go, and don't screw it up. Thanks for the vote of confidence." "I mean it, Daniel. That girl is good for you. Don't let her go." Daniel didn't trust himself to respond. He just grabbed his keys and left. The coffee shop was nearly empty when he arrived. Lily was already there, sitting at a corner table with a cup she wasn't drinking. She looked tired. Shadows under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. But she was still the most beautiful thing Daniel had ever seen. He walked over slowly, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. "Hi," he said. "Hi." Lily's voice was quiet. "Careful." Daniel sat down across from her. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The silence stretched, awkward and heavy, until Daniel couldn't take it anymore. "I'm sorry," he said. "For everything, for that stupid joke, for freezing up, for not—" "Stop," Lily said gently. "You don't have to apologize." "Yes, I do. What I said was careless, and—" "Daniel." She looked at him, really looked at him, and there was something achingly sad in her expression. "I'm the one who should be apologizing. I shouldn't have dumped all of that on you. It wasn't fair." "You have nothing to apologize for," Daniel said, and his voice came out fiercer than he'd intended. "You were honest. You told me the truth. That took guts, and I didn't handle it well." You were in shock, Lily said. I blindsided you. You didn't. Not really. Daniel took a breath. I've been lying to myself for 3 years, Lily, telling myself that what I felt for you was just friendship, just gratitude, because it was easier than admitting the truth. Lily went very still. What truth? That I'm in love with you too. The words hung between them, raw and real and terrifying. Lily stared at him, her eyes wide, and Daniel kept going because if he stopped now, he'd lose his nerve. I've been in love with you for so long I don't even remember when it started, he said. Maybe it was that first day when you helped me find Marcus's office. Maybe it was the first time you stayed late to help me with a project. Maybe it was when you met Emma and she adored you immediately because kids have better instincts than adults, and she knew what I was too scared to see. Daniel, I was terrified, he said, and his voice cracked. Terrified of losing you, of screwing it up, of ruining the one good thing in my life by wanting more. So I buried it. I told myself we were just friends, that it was safer that way. And I was so focused on not losing you that I didn't realize I was hurting you instead. Lily's eyes were shining with unshed tears. You weren't hurting me. Yes, I was. Every time I didn't say what I felt. Every time I let you think I didn't see you the way you saw me. Every time I was too much of a coward to tell you the truth. He reached across the table, hesitated, then took her hand. She didn't pull away. I'm done lying, to you and to myself. I love you, Lily. I'm in love with you. And I know I've handled this badly, but if you give me a chance, I swear I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be the person you deserve. A tear slid down Lily's cheek, then another. She wiped them away with her free hand, laughing through the tears. You're such an idiot, she said, but her voice was soft, fond. I know. 3 years, Daniel. 3 years we could have... I know, he said again. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Lily squeezed his hand. Stop apologizing. Then what do you want me to do? She smiled, a real smile, the kind that lit up her whole face. Kiss me, you idiot. Daniel didn't need to be told twice. He stood up, pulled her to her feet, and kissed her right there in the middle of the coffee shop. It was clumsy and desperate and perfect. And when they finally broke apart, Lily was laughing. About time, she whispered. Yeah, Daniel said, resting his forehead against hers. About time. They stayed like that for a long moment, just holding each other, and Daniel felt something settle in his chest, something that felt like coming home. So what now? Lily asked eventually. Now we figure it out, Daniel said. Together. I like the sound of that. Me too. They left the coffee shop hand in hand, and for the first time in a week, Daniel felt like he could breathe again. The fear was still there, fear of screwing this up, of not being enough, of all the ways this could go wrong, but it was quieter now, manageable. Because Lily was here, and she loved him, and maybe that was enough. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a new rhythm. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever was, but it was theirs. They still worked together, still stayed late on projects, but now there were stolen kisses in empty conference rooms and texts that had nothing to do with work. Lily started coming over on weekends, and Emma took to calling her Daddy's Lily with the kind of possessive pride that made Daniel's heart ache. Does this mean Miss Lily is your girlfriend? Emma asked one Saturday morning while they were making pancakes. Daniel glanced at Lily, who was trying very hard not to laugh. Yeah, Bug, he said. She is. Good, Emma said, as if that settled the matter. I like her. She makes you smile. Oh, she does, Daniel agreed and reached over to squeeze Lily's hand. Lily squeezed back, her eyes soft and warm, and Daniel thought about how close he'd come to losing this, how close he'd come to letting fear win. He wasn't going to make that mistake again. One night, about 2 months after that conversation in the coffee shop, Daniel and Lily were curled up on the couch after Emma had gone to bed. They'd been watching a movie, some romantic comedy Lily had picked, but Daniel hadn't been paying attention. He'd been too focused on the way Lily fit perfectly against his side, the way her hand rested on his chest, the way she laughed at the dumb jokes on screen. You're staring, Lily said without looking up. I know. Why? Because I love you, Daniel said simply. And I'm still not used to being allowed to say it out loud. Lily tilted her head up to look at him. You can say it as much as you want. I love you. Daniel said. I love you too. I love you, Lily laughed. Okay, now you're just showing off. Maybe a little. She kissed him, soft and sweet, and Daniel wrapped his arms around her like he could hold this moment forever. I've been thinking, Lily said when they finally pulled apart. About what? About us. About where this is going. Daniel's chest tightened. And I know it has only been a couple months and I don't want to rush anything, but she hesitated, biting her lip. I want this to be real, Daniel, not just dating, not just seeing where it goes. I want a future with you, with Emma. I want all of it. Daniel felt something in his chest crack wide open. You mean that? Of course I mean it. Why would I? Because I want that too, Daniel said, the words tumbling out in a rush. I want you in our lives, permanently. I want to wake up next to you and go to sleep next to you and build something real with you. I've wanted that since, hell, probably since the first year we met. I was just too scared to admit it. Lily's eyes were shining. You're serious, dead serious. So what are we waiting for? Daniel kissed her again, deeper this time. And when they finally broke apart, they were both smiling like idiots. Nothing, he said. We're not waiting for anything. And for the first time in 3 years, Daniel let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to work out exactly the way it was supposed to. 6 months passed like that. 6 months of learning how to fit their lives together in ways that felt both impossibly easy and terrifyingly hard. Lily started keeping a toothbrush at Daniel's apartment, then some clothes. Then half her closet seemed to migrate into his bedroom without either of them really discussing it. Emma had stopped asking when Lily was coming over because Lily was just always there, folding herself into their routines like she'd been part of them all along. But it wasn't smooth. Nothing with Daniel ever was. The first real fight happened on a Tuesday night in late September. Daniel had promised to leave work early so they could take Emma to the park, but a client meeting ran late, and by the time he got home, Emma was already in her pajamas and Lily was doing dishes with the kind of sharp, aggressive motions that meant she was pissed. I'm sorry, Daniel said, dropping his bag by the door. The meeting went over and I couldn't. She waited for you, Lily said, not turning around. For 2 hours, kept asking when Daddy was coming home. I texted you. A text isn't the same as showing up, Daniel. I know that. You think I don't know that? His voice came out harsher than he'd intended, and Lily finally turned to face him. Do you? Because this is the 3rd time this month you've canceled on her. I'm doing my best here. Are you? Lily set down the plate she'd been scrubbing, because it feels like work always comes first. That's not fair. I'm trying to provide for her, for both of you. We don't need you to kill yourself working, Lily said. We need you to be present. Emma needs her dad, not someone who shows up after she's already asleep. Daniel felt something hot and defensive flare in his chest. You've known me for 3 years. You know how demanding this job is. Why is this suddenly a problem now? Because I love you, Lily said, and her voice cracked. And I love Emma. And I can't watch you burn yourself out trying to be everything to everyone while forgetting to actually be here for the people who matter. The words hit him like a slap. Daniel opened his mouth to argue, to defend himself, but the look on Lily's face stopped him cold. She looked exhausted, not just tired from a long day, but worn down in a way that made Daniel's chest ache. I'm sorry, he said quietly. You're right. I've been prioritizing the wrong things. I don't want you to apologize, Lily said. I want you to do better. I will. I promise. Lily studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. Okay? Yeah. But Daniel, if you make that promise, you have to keep it. Emma can't handle more broken promises, and neither can I. The weight of that settled on Daniel's shoulders like a physical thing. He crossed the kitchen and pulled Lily into his arms, and she let him, though her body stayed tense. I'll do better, he said into her hair. I mean it. I hope so, Lily whispered back. Daniel did try. He started leaving work on time at least 3 days a week. He stopped checking his email after Emma went to bed. He said no to projects that would have eaten up his weekends, even when Marcus gave him grief about it. It wasn't perfect. He still slipped sometimes, still got caught up in deadlines and forgot to text. But he was trying, and Lily saw that. The second fight was worse. It happened in November, right before Thanksgiving. Daniel's ex-wife, Claire, called out of nowhere asking if she could see Emma. She'd been mostly absent for the past 2 years, a birthday card here, a stilted phone call there. But suddenly she wanted to have Emma for the holiday weekend. Daniel said no. Claire threatened to lawyer up. Daniel said she could try. The whole thing devolved into a screaming match over the phone that ended with Daniel slamming his cell down on the kitchen counter hard enough that the screen cracked. Lily had been there for all of it. She'd watched the color drain from Daniel's face, watched his hands shake as he tried to keep his voice steady, and when it was over, she just stood there looking at him like she didn't know what to say. "I'm not letting her waltz back into Emma's life," Daniel said, his voice tight. "She gave up that right when she walked away." "I know," Lily said carefully. "She doesn't get to show up when it's convenient and mess with Emma's head." "Daniel." "What?" He snapped it out more sharply than he'd meant to, and Lily flinched. "I think you need to calm down before you make any decisions." "I'm perfectly calm." "You just cracked your phone." Daniel looked down at the splintered screen and felt something in him deflate. She doesn't get to do this." "I know," Lily said again. She crossed the kitchen and took his hands, and Daniel realized they were still shaking. "But you need to think about what's best for Emma, not what feels like justice for you. This is what's best for Emma, keeping her away from someone who abandoned her." "Maybe," Lily said, "but maybe Emma deserves the chance to know her mother, even if her mother is flawed." Daniel pulled his hands away. "You don't understand." "Then explain it to me." "Claire left us," Daniel said, and his voice was raw now. "She looked at me and Emma and decided we weren't enough. She walked out and didn't look back for 2 years, and now she wants to play mom for a weekend? No, absolutely not." "I get that you're hurt." "I'm not hurt," Daniel said. "I'm protecting my daughter." "Are you? Or are you punishing Claire?" The question hung in the air like a grenade. Daniel stared at Lily, something ugly and defensive rising in his throat. "You don't know what you're talking about," he said. "Don't I?" Lily's voice was quiet but firm. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're making this about you instead of about Emma." "Get out!" The words came out before Daniel could stop them. Lily's eyes went wide. "What?" "I said get out. This is my family, my decision, and you don't get to stand there and tell me I'm doing it wrong." "Daniel, I didn't mean—" "I know what you meant, and I'm asking you to leave." Lily looked at him like he'd just punched her. For a moment, Daniel thought she was going to argue, was going to push back, but then something in her expression shuddered. "Fine," she said. "I'll go." She grabbed her bag and walked out without another word, and Daniel stood alone in the kitchen listening to the sound of the door closing and wondering what the hell he'd just done. He didn't sleep that night, just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the fight over and over until the words stopped making sense. By morning, the anger had burned itself out, leaving only guilt and the sick realization that he'd taken his rage at Claire and aimed it at the one person who'd been trying to help. He called Lily. She didn't answer. He tried again an hour later. Still nothing. By the time he picked Emma up from preschool that afternoon, he was starting to panic. "Where's Lily?" Emma asked as he buckled her into her car seat. "She's busy today, Bug." "Is she coming for dinner?" "I don't know." Emma's face fell. "Did you make her mad?" Daniel's chest tightened. "Why would you think that?" "Because you make that face when you're mad, and you're making it now." "I'm not mad at you," Daniel said. "But you're mad at Lily?" He didn't know how to answer that. "It's complicated, Emma." "You should say sorry," Emma said matter-of-factly. "That's what you tell me to do when I'm mean to someone." Out of the mouths of children, Daniel managed a weak smile. "You're right, I should." Then do it," Emma said, like it was the simplest thing in the world. If only it were that easy. That night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel drove to Lily's apartment. He'd only been there a handful of times. She usually came to his place because of Emma. But he remembered the address. 3rd floor, corner unit. A building that looked like it had been built in the 70s and hadn't been updated since. He stood outside her door for a full minute before he worked up the nerve to knock. Lily answered wearing sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, her hair piled on top of her head. She looked tired, and when she saw him, her expression went carefully neutral. "Hi," Daniel said. Hi. Can I come in? Lily hesitated, then stepped aside. Her apartment was small but cozy, plants on every available surface, books stacked in crooked towers, a couch that looked like it had been salvaged from a thrift store. It smelled like vanilla and coffee, and Daniel felt a pang of guilt that he'd never really paid attention to this space before. I'm sorry, he said before she could speak. For what I said, for how I acted, for kicking you out, all of it. Lily crossed her arms. Okay. I was angry and I took it out on you, and that wasn't fair. No, Lily agreed. It wasn't. You were right about Claire, about Emma, about all of it. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, suddenly exhausted. I was thinking about myself, not about what Emma needs. And when you called me on it, I lashed out instead of listening. Yeah, Lily said. You did. I'm sorry, Daniel said again. I know I keep saying that, but I mean it. I was wrong. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed and sat down on the couch, gesturing for him to join her. I shouldn't have pushed so hard, she said. I know Claire is a sore subject. I should have been more careful. You were trying to help. I was, but I also... She paused, choosing her words carefully. I don't have kids, Daniel. I don't know what it's like to have someone walk out on you and your daughter. So maybe I don't have the right to tell you how to handle it. You have every right, Daniel said. You're part of this family now. Your opinion matters. Does it? Because last night it felt like you were drawing a line, like I was allowed to be here for the easy stuff, but not the hard stuff. Daniel felt like he'd been punched. That's not... I didn't mean it like that. Then how did you mean it? He struggled to find the words. I was scared, he said finally. Scared that you were right, scared that I was screwing this up, scared that if I let Claire back in, even a little bit, she'd hurt Emma again. And I couldn't. I can't let that happen. I know, Lily said softly, but you can't protect Emma from everything. Sometimes people get hurt, and all you can do is be there to help them through it. What if I'm not enough? You are, Lily said, and she reached over to take his hand. You're a good dad, Daniel. You make mistakes, sure, but you show up. You try. That's more than a lot of kids get. Daniel felt his throat tighten. I don't want to lose you. You're not going to lose me, Lily said, but you can't shut me out when things get hard. We're either in this together or we're not. Together, Daniel said immediately. I want together. Then you need to trust me, even when I'm saying things you don't want to hear. I do trust you. Then prove it, Lily said. Let me in, all the way, not just the good parts. Daniel pulled her close, and she came willingly, tucking herself against his side like she belonged there. And maybe she did. Maybe she always had. I'm sorry, he said one more time. I know, Lily said. Just don't do it again. I'll try. That's all I'm asking. They sat there in silence for a while, and Daniel felt something settle in his chest. Something that felt like forgiveness, like a second chance, like maybe they could actually make this work. Eventually Lily spoke. So what are you going to do about Claire? Daniel sighed. I don't know. Let her see Emma, I guess, supervised for a few hours, see how it goes. That's probably smart. I hate it. I know. But you're right. Emma deserves the chance to know her mother, even if her mother is... He stopped himself. Flawed? Lily offered. I was going to say something less charitable, but yeah, flawed. Lily smiled faintly. We're all flawed, Daniel. That's kind of the point. The meeting with Claire happened the following Saturday at a park halfway between their houses. Daniel brought Emma, his mom came for moral support, and Lily offered to wait at home. Daniel almost took her up on it, but at the last minute he asked her to come. Are you sure? Lily had asked. This feels like a family thing. You are family, Daniel said, and meant it. So Lily came. She sat on a bench with Daniel's mom while Daniel and Emma walked over to where Claire was waiting by the playground. She looked different, thinner, her hair cut shorter, wearing clothes that looked expensive in a way that made Daniel's jaw tighten. She smiled when she saw Emma, but it was tentative, nervous. Hi, sweetie, Claire said, crouching down to Emma's level. Emma hid behind Daniel's leg. Who are you? Claire's smile faltered. I'm I'm your mom. Emma peeked out, frowning. I don't have a mom. Daniel felt his chest constrict. Claire looked like she might cry. You do, Claire said quietly. I know I haven't been around, but I have Daddy, Emma said firmly, and Grandma, and Lily. Claire's eyes flicked to Daniel, confused. Lily? My girlfriend, Daniel said. The word still felt new, even after 6 months. Oh. Claire straightened up, and there was something brittle in her expression now. I see. The meeting lasted an hour. Claire tried to engage Emma, brought a stuffed animal, asked about preschool, offered to push her on the swings, but Emma remained distant, polite but uninterested. By the end, Claire looked defeated, and Emma seemed relieved when Daniel said it was time to go. Can we do this again? Claire asked as they were leaving. Next month, maybe? Daniel glanced down at Emma, who was clinging to his hand and clearly ready to leave. We'll see. Daniel, please, I'm trying. I know, he said. And he did know. He could see it in the way her hand shook, the way her voice cracked when she talked to Emma. But trying wasn't enough to undo 2 years of absence. I'll think about it. Claire nodded, looking like she wanted to say more, but Daniel was already turning away, leading Emma back to where his mom and Lily were waiting. How'd it go? Lily asked quietly as they walked to the car. About as well as expected, Daniel said. Emma okay? Yeah, she's tough. Lily squeezed his hand. So are you. That night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel and Lily sat on the couch with a bottle of wine neither of them was really drinking. Thank you, Daniel said, for being there today. Of course. I mean it. I know this whole situation is messy and complicated and… Daniel, Lily interrupted gently, I signed up for messy and complicated when I fell in love with you. I'm not going anywhere. Even when I'm an idiot? Especially when you're an idiot, Lily said with a small smile. Someone has to keep you in check. Daniel laughed despite himself. Lucky me. Yeah, Lily said, leaning into him. Lucky you. The weeks that followed were easier. Not perfect. There were still fights. Still moments when Daniel's work-life balance tipped too far in the wrong direction. Still times when Lily pushed too hard and Daniel pushed back. But they were learning how to communicate, how to compromise, how to be partners instead of just two people who loved each other. Emma, for her part, had fully adopted Lily as part of the family. She started calling her Lily Mom when she forgot herself, and while Lily always gently corrected her, Daniel could see how much it meant to her every time it happened. One night in early December, Daniel came home from work to find Lily and Emma in the kitchen, covered in flour and making cookies. The counter was a disaster zone. There was frosting in Emma's hair, and Lily had somehow managed to get sprinkles all over the floor. What happened here? Daniel asked, setting down his briefcase. We're making cookies for Santa, Emma announced proudly. It's not even Thanksgiving yet. Practice cookies, Lily said, grinning. Obviously. Daniel looked at the two of them, his daughter and his girlfriend, both covered in baking debris and beaming at him, and felt something shift in his chest. This was what he'd been afraid of losing. This easy domesticity, this sense of home, this feeling that maybe he didn't have to carry everything alone anymore. Can I help? He asked. Only if you don't eat all the dough, Lily said. I make no promises. They spent the rest of the evening making cookies that were probably inedible, and Daniel couldn't remember the last time he'd been this happy. Emma chattered nonstop about her day. Lily teased him about his complete lack of baking skills, and for a few hours the world shrank down to just the three of them in a flour-covered kitchen. Later, after Emma had gone to bed and they'd cleaned up the worst of the mess, Daniel found Lily on the couch looking at something on her phone. What are you looking at? He asked, sitting down next to her. Just nothing. She locked her phone quickly, but not before Daniel caught a glimpse of the screen. It looked like apartment listings. Are you looking for a new place? He asked, trying to keep his voice casual. Lily bit her lip. Maybe? I don't know. My lease is up in February and I was just browsing. Oh. Unless… She stopped herself. Unless what? Lily looked at him, and there was something vulnerable in her expression. Unless you wanted to. I mean, I'm here all the time anyway, and Emma keeps asking why I don't just live here, and I thought maybe. Move in with me, Daniel said. What? Move in with me, he repeated. You're right. You're here all the time. Half your stuff is already in my closet. Emma loves you. I love you. Why are we pretending like this is temporary? Lily stared at him. You're serious. Dead serious. Move in. Make this official. Be part of this family for real, not just visiting. Daniel, is that a no? No, I mean, no, it's not a no. Are you sure? That's a big step. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Daniel said, and he meant it. Move in with us, Lily, please. Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Okay. Yeah. Yes. I'll move in. Daniel kissed her, and she kissed him back, and for the first time in his life, Daniel felt like everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. Lily moved in 2 weeks before Christmas. It should have been a simple transition. After all, she'd practically been living there for months. But the reality of combining 2 lives into one space turned out to be more complicated than either of them expected. The first issue was closet space. Daniel had never been particularly organized, and years of single parenting meant his bedroom closet was a chaotic mix of work clothes, Emma's outgrown baby things he couldn't bring himself to throw away, and random boxes of stuff he'd shoved in there and forgotten about. This is a disaster, Lily said, standing in front of the open closet door with her hands on her hips. It's not that bad, Daniel said from the bed, where he was supposed to be helping but had mostly been watching her. Daniel, there's a box of tax returns from 2019 blocking half the hanging space. I might need those. For what? I don't know. Tax purposes? Lily gave him a look that clearly said she was reconsidering this entire decision. We're cleaning this out. Today. Today? It's Saturday. I was going to take Emma to the park. Your mom already picked her up, remember? You have no excuses. Daniel groaned but got up. They spent the next 4 hours sorting through the closet, Lily making decisive calls about what to keep and what to donate while Daniel tried to argue for keeping things he hadn't looked at in years. You don't need 3 identical blue ties, Lily said, holding them up. They're not identical. That one's navy, that one's royal blue, and that one's blue. They're all blue. Pick one. Can't I keep 2? No. Daniel picked the navy one and felt irrationally sad about abandoning the others. Lily just rolled her eyes and added them to the donation pile. By the time they were done, the closet looked like it belonged to actual adults instead of a disaster zone, and Lily's clothes hung neatly next to his. It should have felt intrusive, having someone else's things mixed in with his, but instead it just felt right. See, Lily said, surveying their work. That wasn't so bad. You're terrifying when you're organized, Daniel said. Thank you. That wasn't a compliment. Lily kissed him. Yes, it was. The second issue was harder to solve. Emma, who'd been enthusiastic about Lily moving in when it was theoretical, suddenly became clingy and anxious when it was actually happening. She started having meltdowns over nothing, refused to get dressed in the morning, threw tantrums about dinner, woke up crying in the middle of the night. It's normal, Daniel's mom said when he called her, exhausted after a particularly rough bedtime routine. She's adjusting. Just give her time. How much time? Daniel asked. Because I don't know how many more nights of this I can handle. As much as she needs, his mom said gently. Big changes are hard for little kids, even good changes. Just be patient with her. Daniel tried, he really did. But patience had never been his strong suit, and after a week of Emma's mood swings, he was running on fumes. It came to a head one Tuesday evening. Emma refused to eat the dinner Lily had made, mac and cheese, which was usually her favorite, and when Daniel tried to coax her into taking just a few bites, she threw the bowl across the kitchen. It shattered against the wall, sending noodles and cheese sauce everywhere. For a moment, nobody moved. Emma's face crumpled, already anticipating the punishment she knew was coming. Lily stood frozen by the stove, looking horrified. And Daniel felt something in him snap. Emma Grace Hayes, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. Go to your room. Now. But Daddy. Now. Emma burst into tears and ran down the hall. A moment later, Daniel heard her bedroom door slam. Lily finally moved, grabbing paper towels. Daniel! Don't, he said, already kneeling to pick up the broken pieces of the bowl. Just don't. She's having a hard time. I know she's having a hard time. You think I don't know that? Daniel's hands were shaking as he gathered the ceramic shards. But that doesn't mean she gets to act like this. She's 4 years old, Lily said carefully. She's scared and confused and probably doesn't even understand why she's feeling this way. So what am I supposed to do? Just let her destroy the house? No, but... Lily knelt down next to him, taking the broken pieces from his hands before he could cut himself. You can't yell at her for having feelings she doesn't know how to handle. I didn't yell. Daniel. He sat back on his heels, suddenly exhausted. I don't know what I'm doing. Every time I think I've figured this parenting thing out, something changes and I'm back to square one. You're doing fine, Lily said. I'm not. I'm screwing this up. You're not screwing anything up. You're human. You're allowed to be frustrated. Not at her, Daniel said. She's a kid. I'm the adult. I should be better than this. Lily reached over and took his hand. Go talk to her. What do I even say? The truth. That you love her. That you're sorry for losing your temper. That you're figuring this out together. Daniel looked down the hall toward Emma's closed door and felt his chest tighten. What if I can't fix this? Then we'll figure it out, Lily said. Together. Daniel found Emma curled up on her bed, crying into her pillow. The sight of her small body shaking with sobs made his heart crack open. Bug, he said softly, sitting on the edge of her bed. Can we talk? Emma didn't look at him. I'm sorry I threw the bowl. I know you are. And I'm sorry I got angry. Are you mad at me? No, baby, I'm not mad. I'm trying to understand what's going on. You've been really upset lately, and I don't know how to help you. Emma finally lifted her head. Her face was blotchy and tear-stained, and she looked so small and vulnerable that Daniel had to fight the urge to just scoop her up and tell her everything was fine. I don't want things to change, Emma said in a tiny voice. What do you mean? I like Lily, but what if you like her more than me now? Daniel felt like he'd been punched. Oh, Emma, sweetheart, no. That could never happen. But she lives here now, and you smile at her all the time, and sometimes you forget to read me stories because you're talking to her. Every word was a knife to Daniel's chest. He'd been so focused on making things work with Lily that he hadn't noticed Emma feeling pushed aside. Come here, he said, pulling her into his lap. She came willingly, tucking her head under his chin like she used to when she was smaller. I love Lily, but you are the most important person in my entire world. You always will be. Nothing and nobody could ever change that. Promise? Promise. You're my kid, Bug. That means you're stuck with me forever. Even when I'm bad? Especially when you're bad, Daniel said, kissing the top of her head. Though I'd appreciate it if you didn't throw any more bowls. Emma let out a watery laugh. I didn't mean to. I know. But next time you're feeling angry or scared or confused, can you use your words instead? Tell me what's wrong so I can help. Okay. And Emma? Lily isn't here to replace you or take me away from you. She's here because she loves us, both of us. You're not losing me. You're gaining someone else who cares about you. Does that make sense? Emma nodded against his chest. I guess. Give it a chance, okay? And if you're feeling sad or worried, you tell me. Always. Deal? Deal. They sat there for a while longer, just holding each other, and Daniel felt some of the tension ease out of his shoulders. This wasn't fixed. Parenting was never that simple, but it was a start. When they finally emerged from Emma's room, Lily was sitting on the couch looking anxious. She stood up when she saw them. I'm sorry for throwing the bowl, Emma said immediately, and for making a mess. It's okay, Lily said gently. We all have bad days. Emma hesitated, then ran over and hugged Lily's legs. Lily looked surprised but pleased, resting a hand on Emma's head. I'm glad you live here, Emma said, her voice muffled against Lily's jeans. Yeah? Lily's voice was soft. Yeah, but sometimes I need extra time with just Daddy. Is that okay? Lily glanced at Daniel, who nodded. Of course that's okay, she said. Your dad loves spending time with you, and so do I. But you and your dad had a special thing going long before I showed up, and that should never change. Emma pulled back, looking relieved. Okay, good. That became their new routine. Lily was careful to give Daniel and Emma space. Saturday mornings were daddy-daughter time, and she'd go to the gym or run errands while they made pancakes and watched cartoons. And once a week, Lily and Emma had their own time together, usually spent doing crafts or baking or other activities that Daniel had no patience for. It wasn't perfect. Emma still had occasional meltdowns, and there were nights when the adjustment felt overwhelming for all of them. But slowly, gradually, they found their rhythm. By January, it felt less like Lily had moved into Daniel's space and more like they'd created something new together. The apartment didn't look the same. Lily had added plants and throw pillows and organization systems that actually worked, but it felt more like home than it ever had before. Daniel started to relax, started to let himself believe that maybe this could actually work long term, that maybe he hadn't completely screwed up his second chance at something real. And then Claire called again. It was a Wednesday evening. Daniel was helping Emma with a puzzle while Lily made dinner, and when his phone rang with Claire's name on the screen, he almost didn't answer. I should take this, he said, standing up. Lily glanced over from the stove and nodded. Daniel stepped into the bedroom and closed the door. Hello? Hi, Daniel. Claire's voice was strained. Do you have a minute? What do you need? I wanted to ask about Emma, about maybe having her for a weekend, a full weekend, not just a few hours. Daniel's jaw tightened. We've been over this. I know, but I've been consistent, haven't I? I've shown up for every visit we've scheduled. I haven't missed one. That was true. Over the past 2 months, Claire had seen Emma 6 times, supervised visits at parks or restaurants, never more than a few hours. And to her credit, she'd been punctual and present every single time. Emma's still adjusting, Daniel said carefully. To a lot of things. I don't think throwing a weekend visit into the mix is a good idea right now. She's adjusting to your girlfriend moving in, you mean? Daniel felt his back go up. That's not your concern. It is if it affects my daughter. She's been my daughter for 4 years, Claire. Where were you? That's not fair. Isn't it? Daniel's voice was sharp now. You left. You chose to leave. You don't get to show up now and act like you have equal say in her life. I'm trying, Claire said, and her voice cracked. I made mistakes, Daniel. I know that. But I'm trying to fix them. Doesn't that count for something? Daniel closed his eyes and counted to 10. It counts. But trying doesn't mean I'm just going to hand Emma over for a weekend. She barely knows you. Then let me change that, please. I'm asking for 1 weekend. I'll do whatever you want. You can call every night. I'll send you pictures. You can have someone check in on us. Why? Daniel interrupted. Why now? What changed? There was a long pause. When Claire spoke again, her voice was quieter. I'm getting help, therapy. I've been going for 3 months now, trying to figure out why I ran, why I couldn't handle being a mother. And I'm starting to understand some things about myself, about what I lost when I left. Daniel didn't know what to say to that. Part of him wanted to tell her it was too little too late. Another part, a smaller, quieter part, wondered if people deserved second chances. I need to think about it, he said finally. Okay, that's... okay. Thank you for considering it. I'm not promising anything. I know. Daniel hung up and stood there for a moment, staring at his phone. When he came back out to the living room, Lily took one look at his face and knew something was wrong. Emma, sweetie, can you wash your hands for dinner? She said. Emma ran off to the bathroom, and Lily turned to Daniel. What happened? Claire wants a weekend visit. Oh. I told her I'd think about it. Lily studied his face. What do you want to do? I want to say no. I want to tell her she doesn't get to ask for more when she's barely earned what she has. But maybe she deserves a chance to try. I don't know. Daniel ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. What would you do? It's not my call, Lily said gently. I'm asking anyway. Lily was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. I think you should talk to Emma. Not about the specifics, but about how she feels about her mom. See if she even wants more time with Claire before you make any decisions. She's 4. How is she supposed to know what she wants? Kids know more than we give them credit for, Lily said. And Emma's smart. She'll tell you if this is too much. Daniel looked toward the bathroom, where he could hear Emma singing to herself while she washed her hands. When did parenting get this complicated? I'm pretty sure it's always been complicated, Lily said. You're just noticing now. That weekend, Daniel took Emma to the park. Just the two of them, like old times. They played on the swings and the slide, and when Emma got tired, they sat on a bench sharing an ice cream cone, even though it was January and way too cold for ice cream. Can I ask you something, Bug? Daniel said, wiping chocolate off her chin. Uh-huh. Huh? How do you feel about your mom? About Claire? Emma's face scrunched up in thought. I don't know. Do you like spending time with her? She's nice. She brings me presents. But do you like her? Emma considered this seriously. I don't know her very much. She feels like when you meet someone at a party and they're friendly, but you don't really know if you want to be friends with them. Daniel was constantly amazed by how perceptive his daughter could be. That makes sense. Would you want to get to know her better? Maybe. I don't know. Emma looked up at him with serious eyes. Do you want me to? This isn't about what I want. It's about what's good for you. But what if I don't know what's good for me? Then we figure it out together, Daniel said, echoing Lily's words from earlier. But Emma, if you ever feel uncomfortable or scared or like you don't want to see her anymore, you tell me, okay? I need you to promise me that. I promise. Good. Daniel pulled her close, and Emma snuggled into his side, still working on the ice cream. You know I love you, right? I know, Daddy. And nothing, not your mom, not Lily, not anybody, is ever going to change that. I know that too. Good. Just making sure. They sat there until the ice cream was gone, and Emma's fingers were sticky, and the sun was starting to set. And when they finally headed home, Daniel still didn't know what he was going to tell Claire, but at least he felt like he was making the decision for the right reasons. That night, after Emma was in bed, Daniel talked to Lily about it. They were in the kitchen, Lily washing dishes, Daniel drying, and he laid out the whole situation, every conflicting feeling and fear and uncertainty. So what are you going to do? Lily asked when he was done. I think I'm going to say yes to a weekend visit, but supervised. My mom will stay nearby and I'll check in constantly. And if Emma seems uncomfortable at any point, I'm pulling the plug. That sounds reasonable. Does it? Because I feel like I'm making a huge mistake. Lily turned off the water and dried her hands. You're giving Emma a chance to know her mother. That's not a mistake. It's compassionate. Or stupid. It's not stupid. Lily took his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. You're doing this because you love Emma and you want what's best for her. That's the opposite of stupid. What if Claire hurts her? Then you'll be there to help her through it. That's what parents do. Daniel pulled Lily close, resting his forehead against hers. I don't know what I'd do without you. Good thing you don't have to find out. Daniel called Claire the next day and told her she could have Emma for a weekend at the end of the month. Claire cried and thanked him about a dozen times, and Daniel tried very hard not to regret his decision immediately. The weeks leading up to the visit were tense. Daniel second-guessed himself constantly, ran through worst-case scenarios in his head, and probably drove Lily crazy with his anxiety. But she was patient with him, talked him down from panic attacks, and reminded him that he was making the right choice. When the weekend finally arrived, Daniel dropped Emma off at Claire's apartment, a small but tidy place in a complex across town, with enough instructions and warnings that Claire finally had to gently tell him to leave. She's going to be fine, Claire said. I promise I'll take care of her. You call me if anything happens. Anything. I will. And send pictures. Every few hours. Daniel, I mean it. Claire smiled, but it was understanding rather than annoyed. I know you do. I'll send pictures. Daniel kissed Emma goodbye. She seemed more excited than nervous, which he took as a good sign, and drove home feeling like he'd left part of himself behind. Lily was waiting for him with takeout and a movie she'd picked specifically because it was stupid and mindless and required zero brain power. They ate on the couch, and Daniel checked his phone every 10 minutes until Lily finally took it away from him. She's fine, Lily said. Claire will call if something's wrong. What if she doesn't? Then your mom will. You have 3 different people watching out for Emma right now. She's probably safer than she's ever been. Daniel knew she was right, but that didn't stop the anxiety from eating at him. He made it through the movie, barely, and then convinced Lily to go to bed early just so he could lie there and stare at the ceiling while spiraling through every possible disaster scenario. Around midnight, his phone buzzed. Daniel grabbed it so fast he nearly dropped it. It was a picture from Claire. Emma in pajamas, brushing her teeth, giving the camera a goofy grin. The caption read, "Bedtime went smooth. She's doing great. We'll send another update in the morning." Daniel felt something in his chest loosen. He showed the picture to Lily, who'd woken up when he'd lunged for the phone. "See," she said sleepily, "told you she was fine." "Yeah," Daniel said, staring at the picture. "She is." He slept better after that, and when morning came, there was another picture. Emma eating pancakes, syrup all over her face, looking happy and unbothered. By the time Sunday afternoon rolled around and it was time to pick her up, Daniel had received a dozen pictures and 3 phone calls from Emma herself, all of them cheerful and unconcerned. When he arrived at Claire's apartment, Emma ran to him immediately, talking a mile a minute about everything they'd done, movies and pizza and a trip to the aquarium. "Did you have fun?" Daniel asked, kneeling down to her level. "Yeah, Mom showed me pictures of when I was a baby. She said I used to cry a lot." "You did," Daniel confirmed, glancing up at Claire, who looked tired but happy. "Thank you," Claire said quietly, "for trusting me with her." Daniel stood up, Emma still clinging to his leg. "How'd it go? Really?" "Good. Better than I expected, honestly. She's an amazing kid, Daniel. You've done such a good job with her." The compliment caught him off guard. "Thanks." "I know I don't deserve another chance," Claire said. "But if you'd be willing to do this again sometime, let's take it one step at a time," Daniel said. "But yeah, we can talk about it." Claire's face lit up, and for the first time since she'd come back into their lives, Daniel thought maybe, just maybe, this could actually work. On the drive home, Emma chattered nonstop about her weekend, and Daniel listened with half his attention while the other half processed everything that had just happened. When they got home, Lily was there, and Emma launched herself at her with the same enthusiasm she'd shown Daniel. "I missed you," Emma said, hugging Lily tight. "I missed you too, sweetheart," Lily said, and the easy affection between them made Daniel's chest tight in the best way. Later that night, after Emma was asleep and Daniel and Lily were curled up on the couch, Daniel finally let himself breathe. "You okay?" Lily asked. "Yeah, I think I am." "Told you it would be fine." "You're very smug when you're right." "I have to be. It happens so often." Lily grinned, then turned more serious. "I'm proud of you. I know that wasn't easy." "None of this has been easy," Daniel said. "But it's worth it, all of it, because I have you and Emma. And somehow we're making this crazy blended situation work." "We are," Lily agreed. "Not perfectly, but we're figuring it out." "Together," Daniel said. "Together," Lily echoed and kissed him. And for the first time in a long time, Daniel felt like everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. Spring came slowly that year, the kind of gradual thaw that made you forget winter had ever existed. By April, the apartment had settled into a rhythm that felt less like 3 separate people occupying the same space and more like an actual family. Emma turned 5 in March, a chaotic birthday party with too much cake and a dozen screaming kids that left Daniel exhausted and Lily laughing at his shell-shocked expression. Claire had come to the party, stayed for an appropriate amount of time, and left without any drama, which felt like a minor miracle. Things were good. Better than good, actually. Daniel had stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop, stopped bracing himself for disaster. He'd started to believe that maybe this was it, that maybe he'd finally figured out how to build something that lasted. And then one Saturday morning in late April, Lily woke him up at 6 in the morning looking pale and holding a small white stick. "We need to talk," she said. Daniel sat up, immediately awake. "What's wrong?" Lily held up the pregnancy test. 2 pink lines stared back at him. For a moment, Daniel's brain went completely blank. He stared at the test, then at Lily, then back at the test. "Are you pregnant?" Lily said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "I'm pregnant." Daniel opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "How?" "The usual way, I assume." No, I mean, we've been careful. Apparently not careful enough. Lily sat down on the edge of the bed, still clutching the test like it might disappear if she let go. I'm sorry. I know we didn't plan this. I know it's terrible timing with everything that's been going on. Stop, Daniel said, finally finding his voice. Don't apologize. But this isn't something to apologize for. He reached over and took her hand, and it was ice cold. Are you okay? How are you feeling? Terrified, Lily admitted. I took 3 tests. They all said the same thing. I don't know what to do. Daniel pulled her close, and she came willingly, tucking her head under his chin. His mind was racing, trying to process this information and failing spectacularly. A baby. They were going to have a baby. He was going to be a father again, and Lily was going to be a mother, and Emma was going to be a big sister. And, Daniel! Lily's voice was small. Say something, please. I'm thinking. That's not encouraging. I'm thinking, Daniel said again, that this is scary and unexpected, and we probably should have been more careful, but he pulled back to look at her. But I'm not upset. Are you? Lily's eyes were shining with unshed tears. I don't know. I'm scared. I don't know anything about being a mom. What if I'm terrible at it? You won't be. You don't know that. Yes, I do. I've watched you with Emma for over a year now. You're already better at this than you think. Emma's not a baby. Babies are different. They're small and fragile, and they cry all the time and not. Lily. Daniel cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. Breathe. We've got time to figure this out. Do we? Because I'm pretty sure babies come whether you're ready or not. Then we'll figure it out as we go, like we've been doing with everything else. Lily let out a shaky laugh. That's not exactly reassuring. It's the best I've got right now. They sat there for a while, just holding each other while the sun came up outside their window. Eventually, Daniel heard Emma's door open and the patter of small feet heading toward the bathroom. We should tell her, Lily said. Not yet. Let's give ourselves a day to process this first. Make sure we're on the same page. Are we? On the same page? Daniel thought about it, really thought about it. A baby meant everything would change again. They'd just gotten used to this version of their family, and now they were going to add another person to the mix. It would be chaos and sleepless nights and diapers and all the things he'd barely survived the first time around. But it would also be Lily's child. Their child. A person they'd made together. And when he thought about it like that, the fear didn't go away entirely, but it felt manageable. Yeah, he said, I think we are. They told Emma a week later, after Lily had been to the doctor and confirmed everything was progressing normally. Emma took the news with the kind of pragmatic curiosity only a 5-year-old could manage. So there's a baby in Lily's tummy? She asked, poking Lily's still flat stomach. Yep, Lily said. How did it get in there? Daniel choked on his coffee. Lily shot him an amused look before turning back to Emma. That's a conversation for when you're older, she said diplomatically. But I want to know now. Too bad. You'll have to wait. Emma seemed to accept this. Is it a boy or a girl? We don't know yet. We won't know for a few more months. I hope it's a girl. Boys are loud. Girls can be loud too, Daniel pointed out. Not like boys. Emma said this with the confidence of someone who'd clearly given the matter considerable thought. Can I help pick the name? Maybe, Lily said, if you promise not to suggest something weird. I won't. I'll pick a good name, like Princess Rainbow Sparkle Haze. Daniel and Lily looked at each other. We're definitely not letting you pick the name, Daniel said. Emma pouted but didn't argue. She went back to her coloring book, apparently satisfied with the conversation, and Daniel marveled at how easily she'd adapted to the news. Kids were resilient like that, able to accept change without all the baggage adults carried around. The pregnancy progressed. Lily had morning sickness that lasted all day for the first trimester, and Daniel did his best to help, making ginger tea, keeping crackers on the nightstand, taking over Emma duty when Lily was too nauseous to function. She was exhausted and cranky and beautiful, and Daniel fell in love with her all over again, watching her body change to make room for their child. They told Marcus at work, and he was surprisingly supportive, even offering to adjust Lily's workload as she got further along. They told Daniel's mom, who cried happy tears and immediately started buying baby clothes. They told Claire during one of Emma's visits, and she congratulated them with what seemed like genuine warmth, which felt like progress. By June, Lily was showing enough that strangers had started offering her seats on the subway and asking when she was due. By July, they'd started setting up the nursery in what had been Daniel's office, painting the walls a soft yellow, and assembling furniture that came with instructions neither of them could understand. Emma helped by offering unsolicited advice and getting in the way, and despite the chaos, Daniel couldn't remember being happier. And then, on a humid August evening when Lily was 7 months pregnant and moving like a ship trying to navigate rough waters, Daniel came home from work to find her sitting on the couch crying. "What's wrong?" he asked, immediately dropping his bag and kneeling in front of her. "Is it the baby? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Lily said, wiping her eyes. "The baby's fine. Everything's fine." "Then why are you crying?" "Because I'm scared," she said, and her voice broke. "I'm so scared, Daniel. What if I can't do this? What if I'm a terrible mother? What if the baby hates me?" "The baby's not going to hate you." "You don't know that. Babies are perceptive. What if it can tell I have no idea what I'm doing?" Daniel sat next to her and pulled her close as much as her belly would allow. "Lily, I had no idea what I was doing with Emma. I still don't most days." Parenting isn't about knowing everything. It's about showing up and trying your best and loving them even when they're driving you insane. What if my best isn't good enough? It will be. I promise. You can't promise that. I can, and I am. Daniel took her face in his hands, making her look at him. "You are going to be an amazing mother. I've seen you with Emma. I've watched you be patient and kind and present, even when you were exhausted. You already know how to do this. You just don't believe it yet." Lily's tears came faster now. "I love you. I love you too. I mean it. I don't know what I'd do without you." "Good thing you don't have to find out," Daniel said, echoing her words from months ago. They sat there until Emma came home from her playdate with Daniel's mom, and then they ordered pizza and watched a movie and pretended like everything was normal. But that night, after Emma was asleep and Lily had finally dozed off, Daniel lay awake thinking about how fragile all of this was, how easily it could fall apart if he wasn't careful, how much he had to lose. The thought terrified him. In September, 2 weeks before Lily's due date, Daniel got called into Marcus's office. He'd been working on a major project for months, a complete overhaul of the company's risk assessment system, and he knew the presentation to the board was coming up. What he didn't know was that Marcus was about to offer him a promotion. "Director of Analytics," Marcus said, sliding the official offer letter across his desk. "Significant pay increase, your own team, the works." Daniel stared at the paper. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. You've earned it. Your work this year has been exceptional." Thank you. This is..." Daniel didn't know what to say. A year ago, he would have jumped at this opportunity without hesitation. But now, with Lily about to give birth and Emma needing him, and a whole life outside of work that actually mattered, he hesitated. "What's wrong?" Marcus asked. "Nothing, Can I think about it?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You want to think about a promotion?" "The timing's complicated. Lily's due in 2 weeks. I don't know if I can take on more responsibility right now." "The position doesn't start until January. You'd have 3 months of paternity leave to figure things out." "Still," Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying Daniel. "You've changed." "What do you mean?" "A year ago, you would have said yes immediately. Now you're hesitating because of your family. That's growth. Or stupidity." "It's not stupidity. It's priorities." Marcus smiled. "Take the weekend. Think about it. Talk to Lily." But Daniel, this opportunity might not come around again. Daniel took the offer letter home and showed it to Lily that night. She read it twice, then looked up at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "This is amazing," she said. "Yeah. You don't sound excited." "I don't know if I can do it. The hours, the responsibility, everything that comes with a position like this." "Daniel," Lily set the letter down. "Do you want this job?" He thought about it. "Yeah, I do." "Then take it." "But what about, we'll figure it out, like we always do." Lily took his hand. "You've been putting your career on hold for years because of Emma, because you were a single parent and you had to. But you're not alone anymore. You have me. We're a team. And if this is something you want, I'm not going to let you pass it up out of fear. What if I can't balance it all? Then we'll adjust. But you won't know unless you try. She squeezed his hand. Take the job, Daniel. You've earned it. Daniel looked at her. 7 months pregnant, exhausted from growing a human, still somehow finding the energy to support his dreams, and felt his chest tighten with so much love he didn't know what to do with it all. Okay, he said. I'll take it. Good, Lily smiled. Now, can you get me some ice cream? This baby is demanding mint chocolate chip. At 9 o'clock at night? The baby doesn't care what time it is. Daniel laughed and got up to get her ice cream. And as he walked to the kitchen, he thought about how much his life had changed in 4 years, how he'd gone from barely keeping his head above water to this, a family, a career, a future that felt solid instead of precarious. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was his, and that made it worth everything. Lily went into labor on a Tuesday morning, 2 days before her due date. Daniel was at work when she called, her voice tight with pain. It's time, she said. Time for what? Time for you to get home and take me to the hospital, you idiot. Daniel was out of his chair and grabbing his keys before she'd finished the sentence. He made it home in record time, found Lily on the couch timing contractions with an app on her phone, and somehow managed to get her to the car without panicking. Emma was already at his mom's place. They'd arranged it weeks ago, so it was just the two of them driving to the hospital while Lily breathed through contractions, and Daniel tried very hard not to crash the car. You're doing great, he said as they pulled into the hospital parking lot. I haven't even done anything yet, Lily gritted out. Still, you're very brave. If you're trying to be sweet, it's not working. Get me inside before I have this baby in the parking garage. Labor lasted 14 hours. 14 hours of Lily squeezing his hand hard enough to cut off circulation. 14 hours of doctors and nurses checking dilation and fetal heart rates. 14 hours of Daniel feeling completely useless while Lily did all the actual work. And then, at 11:47 p.m., their daughter was born. She came into the world screaming, red-faced and furious and absolutely perfect. The nurse cleaned her off and placed her on Lily's chest, and Daniel watched his girlfriend, the woman he loved, transform into a mother right before his eyes. Hi, baby, Lily whispered, tears streaming down her face. Hi, sweet girl. We've been waiting for you. The baby stopped crying almost immediately, as if recognizing her mother's voice. Daniel felt something crack open in his chest, something huge and overwhelming and terrifying in the best possible way. She's perfect, he said, his own voice thick with tears. She is, Lily agreed, looking up at him with so much love in her eyes that Daniel had to look away or risk completely falling apart. Do you want to hold her? Daniel nodded, not trusting himself to speak. The nurse helped transfer the baby into his arms. She was so small, smaller than Emma had been, all tiny fingers and delicate features, and Daniel looked down at his daughter and felt his entire world shift on its axis. Hi, sweetheart, he said softly. I'm your dad. The baby yawned, completely unbothered by the gravity of the moment, and Daniel laughed through his tears. They named her Sophie Grace Hayes. Emma met her sister the next morning and was immediately smitten, insisting on holding her despite needing 3 pillows to support her arms properly. Claire sent flowers and a card congratulating them. Daniel's mom cried happy tears and took about 1,000 pictures, and Daniel stood back and watched his family, all of them together in one room, and thought about how close he'd come to missing all of this. 3 years ago, he'd made a stupid joke in a moment of exhaustion, and it had blown up his entire life. But it had also led him here, to this moment, and he wouldn't change a single thing. They brought Sophie home 2 days later. The apartment felt impossibly small with 4 people instead of 3, and the first few weeks were a blur of sleepless nights and diaper changes, and trying to figure out how to care for a newborn while also making sure Emma didn't feel neglected. It was chaos, beautiful, exhausting, overwhelming chaos. Lily took to motherhood like she'd been doing it her whole life, though she still had moments of panic where she'd wake Daniel up at 3 in the morning convinced something was wrong. Emma appointed herself Sophie's protector and took the job very seriously, reporting any crying or discomfort to the nearest adult immediately. And Daniel divided his time between all of them, trying to be everything to everyone, and mostly just feeling like he was failing at all of it. "You're not failing," Lily told him one night after he'd confessed his fears while they both sat on the couch, too tired to move. Sophie was asleep in her bassinet, Emma was in bed, and they had maybe an hour before one of them woke up needing something. "I feel like I am." "You're not. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, showing up, trying your best, loving your family. That's all any of us can do." "I'm terrified I'm going to screw this up." "Me too," Lily admitted. "Every single day. But we're screwing it up together, so at least we're not alone." Daniel laughed despite himself. "That's weirdly comforting." "I'm full of weird comfort." He pulled her close, and they sat there in the quiet darkness of their living room, listening to Sophie's tiny snores and the distant sound of traffic outside. And Daniel thought about how this was it. This was the life he'd built. Messy and imperfect and held together with duct tape and hope, but real. Solid. His. In November, Daniel started his new position. The hours were long and the responsibility was enormous, but he learned how to set boundaries, how to say no, how to leave work at work so he could be present when he was home. It wasn't perfect. He still slipped sometimes, still got caught up in projects and forgot to text, but he was trying. And Lily saw that. They fell into a new rhythm. Lily went back to work part-time in January, and they hired a nanny to help with Sophie during the day. Emma started kindergarten and came home every day with stories about her friends and the things she was learning. Claire continued her visits with Emma, and while it was never completely comfortable, it was civil and consistent, which felt like enough. And slowly, gradually, the chaos settled into something that felt almost normal. One Saturday morning in March, almost exactly a year after Emma's 5th birthday, Daniel woke up to find Lily already awake, sitting in bed with Sophie asleep on her chest. "You're up early," he said, his voice rough with sleep. "Sophie had a rough night. I've been up since 5. "You should have woken me." "You were exhausted. I handled it." Lily looked down at their daughter, her expression soft. "Besides, I don't mind the quiet time with her. It's nice." Daniel propped himself up on one elbow, watching them. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Are you happy? Like, really happy? Because I know this isn't what you signed up for when we started dating. You were supposed to get a boyfriend, not instant motherhood times 2. Lily was quiet for a moment, and Daniel's chest tightened with worry that maybe she was going to say no, that this had all been too much, that she'd realized she'd made a mistake. But then she smiled. "I'm happier than I've ever been," she said simply. "Yeah, it's hard. And chaotic. And some days I don't know if I'm doing anything right. But I wake up every morning next to you, and I get to watch Emma grow into this incredible little person, and I get to hold Sophie and know that she's ours. How could I not be happy? I want to make sure you don't regret this, any of it." "Daniel," Lily shifted Sophie slightly so she could reach over and take his hand. "I spent 3 years in love with you, watching you be this amazing father, wishing I could be part of your life in a real way, and now I am. I'm living the life I used to dream about. Why would I regret that?" "Because it's not easy." "The best things never are." She squeezed his hand. "Stop waiting for me to realize I made a mistake. I didn't. I chose this. I chose you. And I'd choose it all again, in a heartbeat." Daniel felt tears prick his eyes. "I love you." "I love you too." "No, I mean..." He struggled to find the words. "I love you so much it scares me sometimes. Because I know how close I came to losing you. How close I came to being too afraid to take the risk. And I look at our life now, and I think about what it would be like if I'd let fear win. And..." His voice cracked. "I'm just really grateful I didn't." "Me too," Lily said softly. They sat there in this early morning light, holding hands across the bed with their daughter sleeping between them. And Daniel thought about how 3 years ago he'd made a joke that wasn't really a joke. How Lily had called him on it, had laid her heart out, and forced him to confront the truth he'd been running from. How terrifying it had been to admit he loved her. How worth it that terror had turned out to be. Later that afternoon, after Emma had woken up and they'd all had breakfast together, Daniel found Lily in the nursery changing Sophie's diaper. "Hey," he said from the doorway. "Hey, yourself. I've been thinking." That's usually dangerous. Daniel smiled. Remember that stupid joke I made 3 years ago in the conference room? Lily glanced up, confused. Which joke? About you marrying me and saving me from my mess. Understanding dawned in Lily's eyes. Yeah, I remember. It wasn't really a joke. I know. No, I mean, Daniel took a breath. I mean, it wasn't a joke then, and it's not a joke now. Lily went very still. What are you saying? Daniel crossed the room and knelt down next to her, taking her hand. He didn't have a ring, hadn't planned this moment, hadn't thought it through, but suddenly it felt like the only thing that mattered. I'm saying marry me, he said, for real this time. Not because I need saving, but because I can't imagine my life without you. Because you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Because I want to spend the rest of my life figuring things out together. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Daniel, you don't have to answer now. I know I'm springing this on you, and I don't even have a ring. And yes, Lily interrupted. What? Yes, I'll marry you, you idiot. She was crying and laughing at the same time. I've been waiting 3 years for you to ask. Did you really think I was going to say no? Daniel felt relief wash over him so powerfully his knees went weak. I wasn't sure. I'm sure. Lily pulled him up and kissed him, Sophie still balanced on her hip between them. I'm so sure. They got married 4 months later in Daniel's mom's backyard. It was small and simple, just family and a few close friends, Emma as the flower girl and Sophie as the world's youngest and least helpful ring bearer. Claire came and sat in the back, and while it was a little awkward, it also felt right, like closing a circle that had been left open too long. Daniel stood at the makeshift altar they'd set up under an oak tree and watched Lily walk toward him in a simple white dress, and he thought about how far they'd come, how many obstacles they'd overcome, how many times they'd almost given up but chose to keep trying instead. When the officiant asked if he took Lily to be his wife, Daniel said yes without hesitation. When Lily said the same, her voice was steady and sure. And when they kissed, Emma cheered and Sophie started crying, and Daniel's mom took another 1,000 pictures, and it was messy and chaotic and absolutely perfect. At the reception, while Emma danced with Daniel's mom and Sophie napped in her carrier, Daniel and Lily stood off to the side watching their family celebrate. We did it, Lily said, leaning into him. We did, Daniel agreed. It only took us 3 years and a lot of emotional damage. Worth it, though. Definitely worth it. They stood there in comfortable silence, and Daniel thought about the night in the conference room when everything had changed, about how one careless joke had shattered the illusion he'd been living behind, about how terrifying it had been to finally admit the truth. And he thought about how sometimes the love you're most afraid to see is the one that saves you. Not because it's easy or simple or makes sense, but because it asks you to be brave, to take a risk, to choose vulnerability over safety and trust that the fall won't break you. Daniel had taken that risk, had chosen to be vulnerable, to let Lily in, to build something real instead of hiding behind fear. And it had been the best decision he'd ever made. Hey, Lily said, pulling him out of his thoughts. Yeah? Thank you. For what? For being brave enough to love me back. She squeezed his hand. I know it wasn't easy for you, but I'm glad you did it anyway. Me too, Daniel said, and meant it with every fiber of his being, because at the end of the day, that's what love was. A choice to show up even when it was scary, to trust even when it was hard, to believe that the person standing next to you was worth the risk. And Lily was. She always had been. Daniel had just been too afraid to see it until she'd forced him to look. But he saw it now. Saw her clearly for exactly who she was, flawed and human and trying her best, just like him. And together, they'd built something imperfect and messy and real. A family, a home, a life worth living. And as Daniel stood there watching his wife smile at their daughters, he realized that maybe the point wasn't to get everything right. Maybe the point was just to keep showing up, keep trying, keep choosing love, even when it would be easier to walk away. Maybe that was enough. It certainly felt like enough to him.